I want to recognize with us the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Tapley, the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Vincent Byron, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, our Minister of State. I want also to recognize the High Command of the Police Force and our Defense Force who are here, all other invitees. Again, good afternoon. Let me perhaps start in a note of gratitude, because this morning in a conversation with one of my constituents, she reminded me that in everything to give God thanks. And so I want to say thanks to God for his divine providence, love, grace, and mercy. And I'm reminded that he who has begun a good work in me will complete it to the end. Today, I am pleased to provide an updated scorecard of the efforts of the people's elected government to consolidate the mechanisms and system of governance. In this way, we can ensure a more efficient, sensitive, and sensible response to the people's agenda as determined on February 16, 2015. An important and most positive development occurred on the 14th of May 2015 with Her Majesty's appointment of Mr. Tapley Seaton, CVO QC, as our Federation's acting Governor General. This appointment has been heralded at home and abroad as a most eminent choice. In our constitutional democracy, the Governor General is head of state and de facto head of the Parliament with powers of assent and denial vested in him. Equally true, the Governor General exercises power on behalf of Her Majesty. The thoughtful and consultative approach of the people's government to matters of state has allowed us to secure the services of an illustrious son of the soil for what we anticipate will be yeoman's service to our nation. I must repeat the point that we have here a 5-year contract with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, not 5 days, nor 5 months. The reasonable people of the land know the Herculean task that we face in order to put our country right. They, in the main, want the elected government to be deliberate, to think through the issues, act decisively, and in the country's best interests. We have been doing just that with our own style, unique tone, and deeper appreciation of the sensitive issues which we confront, and with the people's agenda, first and foremost, above all else. We have been doing so, recognizing that we are the government for all, not for some people, but for all. That was our platform message. We were neither going to be a PAM government, a PLP government, nor a CCM government. We were going to be a government for all and a government of national unity. We have been doing this, and we continue to do so with honor and justice on our side. And this government has delivered like no new government has in its first 100 days. Major promises made, major promises kept. So major they are that they deserve repeating every day. The burdensome VAT of 17% removed completely from food, from medicine and funeral expenses, bringing relief to all shoppers. whatever their standing in society. $16 million secured to pay former sugar workers who were disinherited from their due after years of hard work in the sugar industry. Not 1 cent of that 16 million will come from the public coffers. 10 million to the Nevis Island administration as budgetary support with a commitment to its equitable due going forward. Those who lost the elections are outraged. Outraged that the federal government has brought an end to the anachronistic approach of all for St. Kitts and none for Nevis. We, within the short of less than 100 days, rescued the Carifta Games, not 1 cent budgeted for those. We rescued CPL, some 20 million unbudgeted expenditure. We had to deal with that. And we dealt with that in the best interest of the country. Because one choice was to do nothing, let it lapse. How dare any government serious about the fiscal management of the country enter into commitments of $20 million and not 1 cent recorded in the budget for the year of implementation. In the short period in which we were there, what others failed to do, we have done. So we honored Kim Collins and gave him his rightful recognition and distinction in the land of his birth. And the people brought this new sense of civility to the government and governance. The fresh breeze is blowing, and it is indeed for Team Unity and this country a marvelous fresh start. And it will only get better because we are consolidating the people's government. We are truly working for the people, and we are encouraged by our success, and we want to do more. To do more, we need the right people at the right places, and of course, we need God on our side. We need new leadership at our embassies and missions and consulates abroad. Today I can report that our unity government has made a number of nominations to fill vacancies in these offices. In that regard, Cabinet has agreed to the following diplomatic appointments. Mr. Sam Kanda to be designated Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary will be our representative to the United Nations. This appointment will fill, of course, the vacancy created by the resignation of Mr. Delano Bart QC. Mr. Kanda, a former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, has what it takes to commence this assignment and to deliver results from day one. There are several important issues on the United Nations agenda, and with Mr. Kanda's leadership, we expect excellent results. Dr. Thelma Philip Brown is being designated Ambassador to the United States of America, USA. She will be resident in Washington, D.C. Dr. Brown is a well-known medical practitioner and dermatologist with a wide range of experience in the delivery of health services. She is a professional woman who will make a difference in our diplomacy with our most significant international partner, the United States of America. In addition, Dr. Everson Hall is designated as Ambassador to the Organization of American States. Dr. Hall is an academic whose extensive work in the field of economics has cemented his value to the Nevis Island administration in the area of economic policy formulation. Ms. Shirley Skerritt is a career diplomat formerly attached to the OECS missions and embassies in Brussels. She has been confirmed as High Commissioner to Canada, based in Ottawa. Verna Morris is a career Foreign Service officer, and she has been assigned to Cuba as Chargé d'Affaires. Ms. Morris has served in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for over 10 years. She is a graduate of the universities of Cuba and Mexico. Her appointment will fill the void created there by the recall of Ambassador Douglas. The Honorable Mark Grantley, in consultation with the Prime Minister and Cabinet, will in due course bring closure to the other necessary appointments. Some civil service appointments of note. Mr. Osmond Petty is recommended to serve as Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security. Mr. Petty is a former Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He currently serves as Force Personnel Officer. Mr. Petty's task as Permanent Secretary will, among other things, involve coordinating and bringing successful completion to a number of EU projects related to security. Indeed, the 10th EDF cycle has been devoted to security matters in St. Kitts. To deliver a modern rehabilitation and correctional facility to replace the outdated prison built in 1840 or thereabout, and to pursue rigorous reform agenda in our police, our prison, our fire, and defense force. The appointment of Mr. Petty now facilitates the proper implementation of the following legislative instruments and organs for which the Permanent Secretary with responsibility for national security is required to be a member. A, the Defense Force Act, the National Defense Council Act, Chapter 19.20, the National Crimes Commission Act. Of course, to further address our crime-fighting agenda, I intend to appoint a National Security Advisor. Again, this is in fulfillment of the statutory requirement of Section 4 of the National Defense Councils Act. The brief point to be made in our all-out effort to track and reduce crime, we cannot have any legislation related to safety and security not being implemented. And that is why we are attempting now to correct those areas of deficiencies. Moreover, the National Crimes Commission will be activated to facilitate, among other things, community involvement in the fight against crime. The security and safety of St. Kitts and Nevis are basic responsibilities of the state. We inherited a very bad situation, a demoralized force which was under-resourced and lacking in the kind of motivational leadership required for the 21st century. We are working assiduously with international professional police out of the United Kingdom and elsewhere to help deal with the challenges of law and order. And after an initial period of fact-finding, we intend to pursue an extended engagement with specialists, expert support to complement our own local experience. I want to make the point that we are doing all this with the support and the active involvement of the High Command. These persons who have been secured, they were not secured by me. Hardly knew one of them. They were secured by the High Command of the force, using their contact and knowledge, having regard to their intimate knowledge of the security situation in the state. They determine their resource need. My job is to facilitate them in their efforts as resource mobilization. Our police must, by the end of disinvestment. By their teamwork, their energy, delivery, and professionalism showcase the very best which I know reside within them, to the benefit of our people whom they are charged to serve and to protect. I wish to assure the public at this time that the issue of crime fighting is of paramount importance to our unity government. Ours will be a robust approach, thus inclusive for the first time of the employment to Nevis of a contingent of military personnel from the Defense Force. In other words, if you ask how far are we prepared to go to deal with the scourge of crime, we will go all the way. We will deploy all the resources at the disposal of the state to ensure the safety and security of residents and citizens alike. This additional manpower will assist the Nevis Police with matters such as patrols, surveillance, and other general policing operations for several months. This joint approach to addressing crime will also redound to closer collaboration among our security forces on both islands. Thus far, we are already seeing results. And this morning I had an opportunity to speak with the Joint Command, Colonel Wallace, Commissioner Acting, Liebert, Mr. Brandy from the Nevis end, ACPs, Henderson, and Quealy. And we had a very lively discussion about what was happening in relation to crime. The Assistant Commissioner for Crime, do I have it right, Mr. Quealy? Mr. Quealy provided the statistics, which perhaps sometime he will want to present, which shows that all major crimes in the Federation for the comparative period 2013, 2014, 2015, the statistics reflect that they are down, save for the crime of murder. Crime then, according to the police statistics, have seen significant reduction, save for the issue of homicides. Those results are available, and they were made available to me for the first time this morning. I've made reference to that matter. The other appointment which I want to make reference to is in relation to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where we have Ms. Kebas. Again, she is a career Foreign Service officer, and she is now being proposed as the acting permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I want to congratulate her, as I would congratulate all the others who have been proposed for promotion. Ms. Maas worked with me when I served as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Quiet, calm, competent, able. She knows how to get the job done, and I think it is fitting that those who work hard should sow the good or reap the good rewards. I compliment her as I compliment all others. Now, in order to bring reliable experience and qualified support to certain areas of government, we have also agreed, that is, the Cabinet has agreed, to a number of political appointments. Mr. Vernon Connor, for example, who is here, and I welcome him, has been serving as Special Advisor in the Ministry of Youth. I congratulate him and wish him well. He has been involved with young people, molding young people, shaping the lives of many of our citizens. And I know in this new assignment, coming after his last one as a teacher, he will serve us well. I am pleased equally to announce that Miss Lorna Hunkins has been serving as Special Advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We welcome her to this ministry, and we salute her nomination to this particular post. The Honourable Minister Mark Brantley has expressed confidence in her ability and capacity to help him take the ministry forward in collaboration with the rest of the staff. Mr. Sidney Osbud, a former technocrat in the public sector, perhaps he will be best remembered as an educator, has been named to head the Regional Integration Unit in the Office of the Prime Minister. He will then therefore be named Ambassador to CARICOM and will also have responsibility within the regional unit for OECS matters. It is with equal delight that I am pleased to announce that Mr. Michael Powell, Oliver Powell, he will serve as a special envoy in the office of the Prime Minister. Mr. Powell needs no special introduction. A man of vast experience in public life, in private sector engagement, had an illustrious career in tourism, in labor, etc., for a significant number of years over the period 1980 and 95. And he lent his voice and his knowledge to the cause of unity, for which he made, and I make, no apology. But I want to thank him, and we hope that his experience would help us deliver for the people. These appointments are not about the individuals themselves, significant as they are. In my view and in our books, it is about how they will help the government take fuller charge and ensure that we deliver on the mandate. And the slogan we have adopted, working for you. It is about not their post and their rank. It's about the people's results. And that is what we are hoping to achieve. Equally, I am very happy to announce that Mr. John L. Powell, solicitor, barrister, lawyer, man of many parts and many talents, he has been designated as an ambassador and will serve as a special envoy in the Ministry of Sports and Culture. Mr. Powell, of course, has been an inspiration to many of us during the course of the campaign. And we hope that the vitality, the vibrancy, the knowledge, and the energy could all be harnessed to good use in that particular ministry. Mr. Powell, I welcome you and thank you for agreeing to serve. Other appointments will be announced in due course, as we are having significant consultations with a number of our citizens who we know have the ability to make the contribution. And as soon as we have fine-tuned those, we will make further announcement as an act of accountability, as an act of transparency, so the people must know who is operating in their name, in the name of the people. Not so much even in the name of the Team Unity government, in the name of the people, because we have committed that we shall put the people of St. Kitts and Nevis first, and that is what we have been doing. Some other significant appointments relate to the ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, and we have ZIZ fully represented here. So they know this news long before me. But Mr. Douglas Watley will serve as chairman of that corporation, and he will be ably assisted by Mrs. Avanis Thompson as deputy chair. The Development and Control and Planning Board is a board with 13 members. 10 of them are stipulated by law to come from the public sector. The Director of Public Works, for example, the Chief Water Engineer. I think on the last board we had the fire, but the Commissioner is also stipulated to be a member of that particular board. You can't do much about any of those save to abide by the law. We had an option to name 3 persons to complement that number stipulated from the public sector. And we have chosen as the 3 options Mr. Calvin Pemberton. He's an architect, a former director of public works, and a very competent young professional in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have chosen Mr. Fitzgerald Boncamper, and we have chosen represent industry and commerce, etc., Ronald Fish, who is somebody who have had tremendous experience in development in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have determined that having regard to some matters of litigations which have arisen, that we will assign to that board one of the Crown Counsel from the Office of the Attorney General to ensure that the legal matters are given due account as the technicians deal with other matters of which they are more familiar. The National Insurance Board, we have named Mr. Howard Richardson, businessman, to serve as the chair of that particular entity. Fuller particulars relating to these and all other boards, some of which have been previously announced, will be available in the official gazette. Now we are in the midst of the hurricane season. Well, not in the midst, but we are nearing there. June to November, traditional season for the hurricane. And we therefore want to begin and to alert the national community that it is not too early to commence preparation for the start of the 2015 Atlantic hurricane season. The Disaster Mitigation Committee and its various subcommittees are currently being finalized. Concurrently, assessments are on the way regarding the state of readiness of our designated shelters and key service and security agencies such as law enforcement, health institutions, mobilization and public awareness, hurricane preparedness are all in progress. Our 2015 hurricane preparedness efforts will also be enhanced this year by the fortuitous hosting of the Trade Winds Phase 1 exercise, focused on humanitarian assistance. This component of the Trade Winds initiative in St. Kitts is scheduled for May 31st to 9 June 2015. Its objectives include building capacity and disaster recovery competence through improved capabilities to handle relief efforts at the local level. I want to acknowledge Mr. Comrie. Is he Captain, Colonel? Major. Major Comrie, who is here, and he heads the Coast Guard element of the Defense Force, or should I say Coast Guard unit. But in any event, he has been providing the leadership with respect to the coordination of the Trade Winds exercise in St. Kitts and Nevis. When we get to questions, if there are any in relation to trade winds, I am sure between the Lieutenant Colonel and Major Comrie that you will be able to have your question answered. But this is an important regional exercise that will bring a significant number of military and other support personnel on to St. Kitts and Nevis. Finally, a word of encouragement with respect to the students who are now pursuing their test of standards. We have just over 3,000 students who are due to sit or to write the tests of standards in our primary schools. And as they do so, we want to admonish them to do their best to prepare for these key placement examinations. We want the parents and guardians and all in the community to advise and admonish them that a good education is a sure path to preferred opportunities and a far better alternative than living a life of crime, which too many of our young people are now choosing. In this regard, it is never too early to start getting them on the right track. And indeed, this morning in the discussions on crime, it was the Assistant Commissioner Quealy who says this crime fighting exercise has to be a fight taken on by all in society. It cannot be left exclusively to the police. Parenting become important, and the way in which we mold and we bring them up will certainly influence how and what they become in the future. And so we are urging the parents at this critical time, their formative years, to inculcate the best of values, application, consistency of effort, due care and attention to their schoolwork. We know that during this time, for many parents, it is a stressful period. But that is part of the challenge of parenthood. And ultimately, when our children succeed and do well, they bring joy and pleasure to the families and to their schools and their community. And that is what we want and expect of them. So again, I want to encourage the parents not to be passive at this critical point in their life and in the future development, because the future of the child depends on what happens today. Today we have an opportunity by observation, by caring, by instruction, and by example to ensure that this batch 2015 of young people taking the test of standards will be and could be the best batch to have participated. So I want to wish them well. And on the note of wishing well, let me equally extend best wishes for speedy recovery to a young chap who, Mr. Johnson, who had been attached to Her Majesty's prison and who had been serving very well, who in fact is now hospitalized as a result of an unfortunate fire which took place at Her Majesty's prison. Having visited him and his family on Saturday, I say publicly what I said privately to them. They would have the fullest possible support of the government, and our thoughts and our prayers will be with them during this difficult period. I want equally to extend best wishes to the Governor of the Central Bank, Mr. Dwight Venner, who has been hospitalized for some period of time. And again, equally, our thoughts and our prayers are with him. He too I visited on Saturday. But to all those, wherever they are at this moment, who are burdened and depressed and are under siege and ill in any way, this government will stand with you and for you. And whatever we can do individually as members of the cabinet and collectively as a government, we will certainly do for you, because we are committed, we are wedded to the belief that this government will work and must work for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And as we work, the people will reap the rewards. As we work, we ask the people to continue to pray, because by and large, we believe, at the very least, I believe, this was a praying election. And I thank those who prayed yonder, like Nurse Garnett and many others, Melvina Chapman in Texas, and all these people who formed prayer groups to ensure that the country could be ushered into a new moment, a new time, and have this fresh start, which our detractors would wish that we do not enjoy. I say that the government is at work, And it is not every comment that they will make we will enjoin them, because they are the leaders of yesterday. The country has moved on. We are moving forward, focused on the people's agenda. And so we will not be engaged with them in some of the conversations which the people have already determined on the 16th of February 2015. So to God be the glory. Again, I thank all those who rendered support to the Team Unity effort. And even now, while we are in government, they have had the good sense, the patriotism, the love of country to come, provide constructive support, and often to constructive criticism. For we are not perfect, and we will not pretend to be. But we will always be sensitive to the concerns of the majority of the people. And we will do what we think is right, having thought through these things and having prayed about them. Thank you. We are now open for questions. I want to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Sean Richards, who have joined us at this press conference. Could you, in the usual way, indicate or state your name and indicate the media which you represent, and then pose your question?
Good afternoon. I'm Glenn Bart from myview.com. Prime Minister, I would like to ask you about your agenda for legislative agenda, particularly in relation to two of the issues that you had raised so often during your campaign trail. And these refer to the freedom of information and also term limits. Would these be appearing early in the legislative life of the National Assembly?
Thank you very much. We are committed to every commitment, every undertaking which we gave while seeking the support of the people. And so the answer is yes. We will bring those bits of legislation and more which are required in furtherance of the good governance agenda and are required to ensure the development which we want for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have said that some of these ideas that we have preferred, we have been happy, for example, that Trinidad and Tobago passed legislation dealing with term limits. So it is a question now of looking at it, adopting it. We don't have to spend a lot of time in reinventing the wheel, because Trinidad has done it. Guyana, in their own constitution, provides for term limits. Cuba provide for term limits. So they are relevant models from countries which we could look at and ensure that it speaks well to our own people's expectation. We will move on those, and it did indicate at an earlier press conference that we are going to be given some priority to regulations and other issues relating to the Citizenship by Investment Program. And we also have the matter of the OECS Banking Act, which has created some anxiety in Antigua to deal with locally. And those two will be among the priority for a number of reasons, which we need not go through again. But we are aware that the financial sector in the OECS is in need of reform, that there are significant structural challenges, and it is hoped that the legislation will help to bring additional support mechanism to the financial architecture in our countries.
Andre Huey, Win FM. Prime Minister, there's a number of questions pertaining to crime. You mentioned earlier that the statistics show that all of the areas other than homicides show a reduction. What are the immediate plans to address, especially gun crimes, which we have seen an upsurge in recent times? What plans does the government or the High Command have in addressing that? And there are some who would say that the government cannot be serious about crime if it still has an acting commissioner. And of course, this is no disrespect to the the commissioner acting, but what is your response to that, and will there be any indication as to how soon we'll have a permanent position in that area?
Well, I think the last suggestion that an acting position is one that reflects lack of concern with crime, is one that we need not give much attention to. It falls on its face. Look everywhere, there is an acting appointment. Does it says that one is not serious about that particular position? We have a circumstances in which we had a substantive holder of the post, and crime was high. In fact, the reality is that for the last 5 years, we have been having one of the highest upsurge in crime within the region on a per capita basis. So, it happened when there was Walwyn, substantive holder. It happened when there was somebody else before him. The acting commissioner has nothing to do with it. Because if there is a crime plan, if there are people committed and competent to deliver on the plan, then it doesn't stop with one man. The commissioner is just one man. I have heard the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Vaughn Henderson, say repeatedly in meetings and publicly, Mr. Prime Minister, this is a team effort, a team response. And we have within the High Command of the Force an acting commissioner who is among the most senior of police officers in St. Kitts and Nevis and within the region. He has gone through a lot of substantive holders. The deputy seemed to be stronger because he has remained there. And we have Ian Quealy and Vaughan. They are among the best trained, they told me, of police officers. It's not the rank. It's not the position. It is whether we are using the resources effectively to be able to deal with the matters of crime in the country. And I have every confidence if the High Command work in unity, if the High Command bring the abundance of experience that reside within them. ACP Henderson, 22 years. ACP Quealy, much more than that. Stafford, more than that. And Brandy in Nevis, much, much more than that. We have enough experience, knowledge. Almost every week I am signing for police officers to go abroad and training. What we need now sometimes, 10,000, 15,000. I said, Lord, the police getting too easy. Thousands of dollars being spent. We have to give these young people, and not so young people in the force, the opportunity to shine, to combine the experience and their vitality and energy and their new vision to bring to crime fighting. I am confident that we have the team that can make it work. And if in the end the results do not follow through, then we will take the requisite action that is required in the national interest. It is not a friendship thing. It is that as a Minister of National Security, I have confidence that the people who are there, if they work hard, if they are sensitive to the public comments, if you tell me we will find no brighter police than Ian Quealy or Vaughan, why I have to go look for a new one? If you tell me that in our Deputy Commissioner you have the wealth of experience, there are issues of communication and what's not and so on. But when I sat with them this morning, I combined the contribution of Lieutenant Colonel Wallace. I know if we work together in unity, this is not beyond us. And some very interesting ideas were proposed. Of course, it was in the context of a security meeting, so I can't say. But I believe that the country can be confident and give them the appropriate support. It means that those who know when incidents happen and would not say, that we want to encourage them to say to somebody. Because usually someone knows. And we are in this thing together. You may think that you are protecting a friend, but your baby, your brother, your sister may end up being the innocent victim of your silence, when what is required is for people to speak out. And so we will have a comprehensive approach involving the police at the forefront of the crime fighting initiative in support with the Defense Force. That is why we have deployed them in Nevis. And as we have done in Nevis, we will do equally in St. Kitts. And the commander says to the commissioner, whatever you want from us, we are prepared. I like the sound of that. I'm just hoping that when the commissioner calls, he can get Mr. Wallace, so everything is there at his disposal. But that is the kind of collaboration. And we broaden it because it's not just a matter for them, although they are charged to serve and to protect us. It is for each of us to determine what we will do. It is for those in the clergy to determine how they will respond to this upsurge in terms of the admonitions to their congregation, in terms of their outreach to people to bring them back again to Sunday schools and into the church, where the value system which teaches love, which teaches peace, that those values could help condition people in such a way that they develop, as it were, a repulsion for crime, and they will not participate nor condone those efforts. I don't know if the ACP for crime want to add anything, or the ACP for operations, or even the commissioner or the colonel will want to add anything at this point in relation to the crime matter.
ACP crime.
The commissioner has volunteered ACP for crime.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister, members of the media. Good afternoon. As PM has indicated, the review of the statistics have revealed that there are decreases in all major categories of crime, with the exception of homicides and the shootings. And I can say that the Prime Minister would have explained what I indicated to him this morning quite well, in that the police is prepared to take the charge, but we are only one facet, and we are prepared to be in the forefront. However, we are appealing to the members of the community for their assistance. And I just want to highlight maybe another example that the Prime Minister did not highlight, which I indicated. One of the worrying factors that we have is that of the family structure, and in particular, single parenting. There is not a day in the week when at least 10 to 15 single mothers don't call my office for the responsibilities that are to be borne by the fathers are not forthcoming. And this we're down to some serious issues when it comes to crime, because they become very susceptible to the pressures of their peers. And to put it very bluntly, if a young 12, 13-year-old is hungry because there's no food in the house and the fathers are not living up to their responsibility, and a tourist pass down the road, they pull their bag, steal, rob, and they go on, and it escalates. And so that in and of itself is a concern for us in terms of the parenting factor. We also want to engage, and I know at a previous press conference I was not here, but the point was made about the community policing. And we intend to engage the community, because that is how we think we're going to reach out to them. We intend to engage the community. As a matter of fact, preparations are well aware that tomorrow we'll be in McKnight at a town hall meeting engaging the McKnight community, because we think that that is something that can help. We're going to reach out more to the schools. And in the issue of policing, there will be, and we crave your indulgence, because a soft approach must be mixed with a hard approach, because we are intent on minimizing the crime rate from getting any higher. We certainly want to take that and say here and now that going forward there will be no excuse and there will be no tolerance, because we don't want to only talk tough, we'll have to act tough. And so there will be targeted approaches, and the gangsters must know that the police will be looking, and with the intelligence that we would have gathered and going back to as far as we can, we will be putting on a series of operations as well. And the key thing to all of this, we want the public to know that even if you're inconvenienced for a moment, this is not something that we intend to let upon in the very near future. But to address the question asked by Andrew, the thing is, in the very short term, you should be seeing activities from the police. As a matter of fact, I can report with the permission of Commissioner. One of the areas that we are investing heavily in is the area of ballistics. And as recent as yesterday, we made an arrest and charged somebody with a murder that was committed back in October of last year, purely on forensic evidence. And we're looking forward to dig deeper into the colder cases, and as we build out our forensic capabilities, we will be able to deliver. And as the Prime Minister said to us this morning, my job is resource mobilization. You tell us what you want, we'll give you what you want, and I like to hear that. So he will be hearing from us in short order. Thank you.
Dr. Conway.
Let's give Conway a chance, and then we'll come back, if you wouldn't mind. A fair share for all.
Dr. Conway, SKN Vibes. Mr. Prime Minister, I have a few observations, recommendations, and questions, and they all pertain to crime. So I think that Mr. Creeley's presence may be required again. Now we know that it was said earlier that crime has reduced in the sense of break-ins and other areas, less homicides and gun-related crime shootings. But all in all, I am still saying, regardless of what I heard here, that crime has reduced, it is still high. And there are a number of factors that cause crime. And I have been looking at marijuana. And this question will go directly to you, sir. Whereby, in America, there are 23 states from since 1997 to date where you find that there have been marijuana has been decriminalized, so to speak. And we have found in the Caribbean, recent, it happened in Jamaica. Now, with the sale of drugs, illegal drugs, you would always find that there will be turf wars. There will be gang wars. And I am asking now, what is the government stance pertaining to the decriminalization of marijuana? If that should become a reality, I think that we will see a reduction in crime. And when we're talking about that, the gun-related crimes, because you will find that if I am pushing my drugs, I have my turf. And anybody coming on my turf, I have to protect it. And the guns are close to me accessing them. Secondly, we look at, up to recently, over the weekend, Sunday and Monday, we had shooting incidents on both islands. And what we found happen is that 2 young men are hospitalized because of that. Why is it that we cannot implement what we may call a 1-month amnesty so that these people can bring in the firearm? And even if they do not want to bring them in personally, they can use the Crime Stoppers, give a call, and state where they have placed the weapons. Following that, when the 1 month is over, you go in Parliament and you legislate. And we're talking about anyone caught with an unlicensed firearm. The lease is 15 years in jail. And if you cannot give the name of the source, the provider, 5 years added to that. And I think that would be a deterrent. It will be a deterrent.
One last question from you, sir.
Yeah. The other one,
We will.
the other one with the observation, but I heard Mr. Quealy talk about forensic evidence. We are looking at how you can prevent crime, while at the same time going back into the past by using forensic evidence to solve those. I have found that, I think it's Barbados and Jamaica, they have employed the use of drones. And I think drones being employed in the fight against crime can be a very successful strategy, because at the end of it all, you would find that if you cannot prevent the crime, but you believe that someone has committed it, having the drones will be much cheaper than to having dozens of individuals in Her Majesty's prison that you have to maintain them for many, many years.
I want to thank you for those important questions. To say generally, in relation to the legislative agenda, the government will consider, and the matter of decriminalization is a very complex matter. It's not as simply as saying that you're going to pass or to cut out. Indeed, you will hard-pressed to find a jurisdiction, and there is none within the Caribbean region, that have proposed decriminalization with respect to marijuana and has had a causal impact in terms of criminal activity. I would want to say that while it is something that is on the agenda and it is something that we must consider, because in the fight against crime, we can't afford to rule out or rule in anything. Everything must be considered so that we ensure we take the most economical, the most practical, and the one most consistent with our cultural preferences in this battle against crime. I would say there are also international repercussions to what we will do in relation to that. And sometimes you have to look beyond the smoke to see what is the reality is. What is the reality in Jamaica, and what are they attempting to do, and how far they will go. When we met with Obama in Jamaica, and that matter came up, Obama said, well, listen, federal government will not, during the life of my presidency, take a decision like that. And if you think that this is going to bring any economic advantage to your societies, I'll advise you to think again. And he says, some say if we free it up, as some have been proposed in the region, then you're going to be able to grow it. And there's a high demand up north, so we'll send it up there. And he says, anything you can do here, up there they can do it better. There is no economic option in terms of that. People are doing so many sophisticated things with that plant. You neither have scope, nor the technology, nor anything to be able, as it were, to be able to provide a competitive basis for undertaking that? What signals would it send to our children and to the rest of society? Is it that we are a society so open, so permissive, that anything would go? I think these are some of the hard, soul-searching kinds of questions that we will have to ask. Deal practically with some of the realities, weigh them, the pros and cons, and then we make a wise determination that will keep us safer. Because if it's a question, is the safety? Will having it so readily available means that the young child in kindergarten now have it and have so much of it that the teacher falls down because her body is unprepared for that. So what does a thing like that means in terms of the practical application in large societies? And the only other add-on I may add, not everything that Peter does, Paul can do too. And so sometimes other societies are better adapted with the range of support services they can bring: psychological support, sociological support, health care, rehab centers, which we don't have. Long and short then, the cabinet will prepared, because this is now part of the regional agenda. I believe after the meeting in Jamaica, some people may not want to be dealing with it as hurriedly as it had appeared on first blush. Because some were putting forward that prescription really partly towards an economic solution. And you hear people ask, if you don't give them that, what will you give them? And those kinds of questions. I would say that we had not put that properly before the people of St. Kitts and Nevis as part of our contract with them. And therefore, the government will have to have significant discussion with all the stakeholders in the society. The teachers' union, the Rastafarian community, the Bar Association, the churches. Everybody must have a voice in it because it has significant implications. And we also have to look at what it says about us internationally and what the consequences, negative, positive, are likely to be from an engagement with that. And the challenges, if any, that will arise for law enforcement, that will arise for those in health care, and all other areas will have to be taken care of. But we have the Attorney General here who usually looks at those things. I don't know if he would wish to say anything at this particular moment. I would suspect that it is not as high up on his agenda at this moment in time, but who knows what tomorrow may bring, because we are in a dynamic world and we have to respond always to the needs of the people. And we also have the High Command here. I don't know if any of them would wish to venture. We had the issue of the drone. Would you want to venture a view with respect to that? I would invite Colonel Wallace to come and say a word, because I've heard him speak on this matter, and we invite him to say something with respect to that.
Mr. Prime Minister, members of Parliament, members of the press, what the Defence Force brings to the table is the venture into new technology in assisting the police. We have one of our members who is adept at that sort of things, and early this year, we started experimenting with the use of a drone. We hope to continue this experiment and make recommendations to the government for the acquisition of that equipment. Thank you.
Sorry. I am sorry, but I must thank, but I think we have Mr. Quealy who would wish to add a word. Sorry.
Thank you. I would like to add, the use of the drone is nothing novel in the law enforcement community. Those members of the press who attended the ACCP conference that was held here just 2 weeks ago, I think Mr. Jason Davis is behind there. Yeah, he had a good look at it. There were some exhibitors, vendors who came down to display the dynamics and the real use and benefits that the drone can bring to us as law enforcement agencies. And when I said earlier that I was happy for the Prime Minister's invitation to say what we want, we were trying very hard to get one to stay here at that particular time. A drone. We had some drones that were there on display, and the quality of the photos that were displayed were superior, and the packages that were offered in terms of the service pack also were quite encouraging, and that's part of the technology that we would want to employ from a strategic standpoint within the policing going forward, because we think that can be of tremendous benefit for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want quickly read the stats which Sir Quealy has provided. 2013, we had 634 serious crimes on record. In 2014, we had 401. And we are looking at the period January to April. And for 2015, we have 180 reported. A significant job. The major crimes, what types of crimes considered among this major category? Murder, break-ins, larcenies, robberies, woundings, which include firearms, malicious damage, arson, firearms and drugs. And the 634 I referred to reflect those elements captured under the rubric of major crimes. 634 recorded in 2013, 401 2014, 180 in 2015. Okay? So that is what the record would show. The high level of the homicide, of course, is a concern and nurtures a kind of fear, the kind of brazen activities that we see happening. That, too, is significant. The police will have to bring the expertise and experience to help us to deal with these particular challenges. And I'm certain, as a result of the discussion, and even before, they have given contemplation to that and are prepared to do even more in relation to that particular matter. Any other question?
What are your thoughts on the same amnesty?
Oh, the question of amnesty, I prefer Mr. Brandy. Would you want to share your view on that? We're not going to hold you by it, but it's a view personal to you. Would you want to say what has been the experience with respect to amnesty? It's a good question, and I know you have a good answer.
It's a good question at the time, but we'll have to consider it very carefully because most of the criminals may have debt and some of those firearms and would not want to surrender those firearms because, the police will do the ballistic and be able to chase back to those persons who commit the crime. So we will look at it, we will think of it, we will, as a team, and see how possible we can grant amnesty, if any.
Thank you. And while Mr. Brandy is there, would you want to say anything with respect to Mr. Grandy has been a stalwart in crime fighting in Nevis. I want to publicly compliment him and commend him. But could you give a sense of where you are in Nevis in terms of crime fighting and how Nevis reflects itself in terms of the statistics for 2015 over the period hearing before reference.
Well, I will give you up-to-date figures. As of this morning, Nevis have recorded 74 crimes for the year. Compared with last year, 116. That gives us something like 42 on some matters. That gives us a 36% decline. But notwithstanding the 36% decline in crime, there are great fear in Nevis for crime. And that great fear because of 5 murders that have been recorded in Nevis for the year so far, in comparison with 1 murder at the same period last year. And that's generate the real fear in crime, and 2 business persons was murdered, a banker and a shopkeeper. And out of the 5, I'm sad to say, we were not able to solve any of the 5 matters. But we are working hard. We have piggy bank and Mr. Wallace resources, and we have a contingent of soldiers over in Nevis, and they are there to help us in conducting mobile patrols, beach patrols, do surveillance, and see how best we can arrest the problem with the firearm.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much, and continue to do the good work. Yes.
Carol Philip Tudor of the Democrat. Mr. Prime Minister, good afternoon. Whilst you were naming names with new ambassadors, this is not an ambassador, but the National Security Advisor. I don't recall if I was listening or not, but I don't recall you naming a person to that role.
Okay.
All right. You will deal with that when you come around.
We have not yet named such a person. We are giving study to that, and shortly we would. But that is provided for within the ambit of one of the pieces of the legislation, one of the pieces of legislation to which I referred to, and which we are trying really to ensure that we have laws and they are being implemented in the fight against crime. And so we have taken on the advisement that that is something that we need to do. That is provided in the National Defense Council Act, Section 4, G, National Security Advisor, etc. And the power or object an act to establish a National Defense Council to advise the government with respect to national security, to coordinate national security activities among the various government agencies, and to enable the law enforcement and security forces and agencies of the government to cooperate more effectively in matters involving national security and to provide for related or incidental matters. And so at Part 4, Section 4, it speaks to the committee, broad-based as it is, Attorney General, Commander of the Defense Force, Chief of Police, National Security Advisor, any such other members as the Minister may appoint. And it gives the National Security Advisor's remit outlined in law at Clause 8, Part 2 in particular. The National Security Advisor shall advise and make recommendation and propose policies and strategies on national security and on matters pertaining to national security, contribute to the formulation of national security policies, serve on any other committees, boards, or authorities that deal with national security as directed by the Minister, represent the government as directed by the Minister at national, regional, international meetings, etc., etc., advise on and assist with the planning and execution of personal security arrangements, etc., etc., advise on and assist. And so you see it's more a policy part of the think tank support that you will be required in the fight against crime, to help with policy formulation, assist with their implementation, etc. This is intended to be someone working in the ministry in particular, providing that support to the minister, rather in the day-to-day arrangements which the police and the defense force must handle. So it's separate. It's like an expert, if you want, or somebody with some knowledge and competence who could add value to what is going on.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to ask about embassies as well.
About?
The embassy in Dubai in particular. No one less eminent than the Honorable Prime Minister, the Premier of Nevis, went down, as I understand, to Dubai. And I wondered, as you were naming ambassadors and so on, what of the embassy in Dubai? I would like to direct a question to, when he gets an opportunity, Mr. Prime Minister, Acting Commissioner Stafford Liebert. He keeps talking. And the first time he addressed the nation, he said in 10 days he would make some big announcements. The press haven't heard any yet. He said in the last time he was here that he would make another big announcement and give us some big names. The press haven't heard anything from him as yet. And I would also like to ask him, when will he make the statistics that he has provided to you, when will he make them available to the media? One final question. If you have been listening to some consumers, they are complaining that one of the things that you taught us as a big achievement in your 100 days, which is the removal of VAT from food, that people are now complaining that the VAT the pre-VAT prices are now creeping back on it in the supermarkets. What are you willing to do about that?
Well, in all these things where there is an injustice, we are willing to go all the way to correct injustices against the people. And in that regard, we have the Honorable Attorney General. What I would say, we have a monitoring mechanism, and the monitoring mechanism has not picked that up. We have a joint team involving persons from the Department of Consumer Affairs. We have persons from Customs. This team is being coordinated by the Financial Secretary, and we are expecting that we will have regular reports with respect to that. Having heard you say this now, I will have an expedited report. But from all our interactions, there have been no evidence to ascertain that. What I would say, and I wouldn't make an apology for anyone who is attempting to rob the poor in particular, I would fight strongly against any effort to rob the poor of the benefit of the reduction. And let it be a warning, because we will go all the way in the fight for economic justice. But there are going to be movement in price naturally, because the prices of certain products would not remain the same. And so we are going to, that is why we have a coordinated efforts. So we are able to access the prices of goods at point of entry. We know what the add-on should be, whether it is the customs service charge or what have you. We know what the add-ons are. The add-on usually would be duty, service charge, VAT, and so on. So we can do the necessary markup and determine really what the prices ought to be. And wherever we find that, somebody will bear the penalty. You could rest assured, if we find concrete evidence that any supermarket, any entity is exploiting and abusing, we will make them a public example. And I make the point that there are instruments available to this government, instrument at all levels, licensing, etc., 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 and which we would be able to deal with any evidence with respect to somebody undermining, exploiting, robbing the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We will not stand for it, and we will fight it robustly. We will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. And where the law does not give us the sufficiency of a response, we will deal with that particular shortcoming. I would say to those who have evidence to report them to the Consumer Affairs Department so that we could take note, carry your receipts, show what it is. We have officers out there whose job it is on a regular basis are going out into the supermarket and are taking note of the prices. And then we have a team that should be responsible for doing the necessary reconciliation and show what is happening. Just as we have a team within that unit which regularly produces something called a look at the supermarkets and show the comparative analysis among supermarkets and a range of products. That system is in place, and we will ensure that is up to date. No time will we allow our citizens to be shortchanged. Not the sugar workers, which is why we went all the way to Caracas to fight for $16 million. Not the people living here. We will not allow it. We will take one last question.
Let me get something from you. Remember, I have to respond to a question.
Oh, in relation to Dubai, we will quite shortly, and I would suspect at the next cabinet meeting, finalize the arrangement with respect to that office. And we will make a fuller report then. But we have not been a matter of oversight. It has been that we have been a bit thoughtful with respect to that. We have a number of candidates that are being considered and weighed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And in due course, those nominees will come to the cabinet for a determination. Thanks.
Jason.
Let's have Jason make the question, and then the acting commissioner will do his response.
All right. Jason Davis is at IZ Broadcasting Corporation. Just a couple of updates I'm asking for. Can we get an update on the Bastia High School situation? I know there was some sort of discussions going on at the last press conference. I'm wondering what came out of that. And also, less than a month to go for CPL. How are things coming along for that?
Okay. I'll have the Minister of Health, whose ministry has been the lead ministry in coordinating the response to the Bastia High School, to respond, and then I'm going to have the Deputy Prime Minister respond with respect to CPL. But before they come, I invite the Acting Commissioner, Mr. Stafford Liebert.
Thank you. Like I said the last time, and even since, if one will count in the day as well, that we have made arrests, whether we have done all of supplying the names to the public, I want to make sure that I repeat one that Mr. Quealy just said. I'll start with the latter. Quealy, do I have it right? Eustace Laville? Eustace Laville. He was charged with murder that occurred in October, and we will be doing a press release, and he was charged with he has a number of charges being brought against it. Our Press and Public Relations Office will release that name, and I can say here that we do have other charges involving homicide charges, but I mentioned the last time, and even just a while before just stepping here, the Director of Public Prosecution gave me some guidelines that he requested again. But even though I've said that the last time, I recall I mentioned that there was someone who was charged, and if Quealy could remember the name, of entering the prison with marijuana. That had connected with some charge. The name of the person? 3 persons. So we had 3 persons arrested out of the marijuana incident. So just in case the Press and Public have Relation Department had not sent out those names, that occur, and all those occur from since we started back when I said that I'll make some announcement. And those are announcements that were made regarding those persons. But the names, I do not have the names in my head now, so I cannot say what the names are, but I can have them by the time I get back to office of who they were who was charged with the prison. I only did mention the banana, but I did not go into the names of the person who was charged. But the one with the murder was charged, and we will have other charges regarding homicides and attempted homicides. Okay. And again, I would just want to say, consistently, it is through the cooperation of the public. And those are not just mere words by me. The names are there and available. Please. In terms of the statistics?
Yes.
Well, I will consult with my high command. Well, the high command, but my fellow colleagues, because I know that we had controlled the statistics available, and I believe I'll say publicly here, ACP Quillier will be able to disseminate them in the manner in which we will decide. It will not be held by the Commissioner of Police. I will not be holding it back from the public. I believe that first, we have to first show the Prime Minister this morning so he sees what we have. And we will begin to publicize it. I know they will give note in a particular manner, but we will change that format. Yes. Is how we will deal with it.
Thank you very much.
Okay? The High Command.
Let me say, as a matter of public policy, this administration will be open, and we therefore will ensure, encourage, urge that we have regular reporting of crime statistics to the community. Of course, the police will determine the form, but there must be, as a matter of policy, regular reporting, quarterly reporting of the crime statistics in the Federation. Is a matter which we had difficulty in opposition, and the sort of selective release. We would want to have a fresh start in crime reporting, information, and the transparency and accountability. So I give that commitment. And if you can't get it from the police, I'll give you mine. But that's it with the official source. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. In answer to the Bastia High School situation, what I will confirm is that the venue sharing arrangement continues, obviously, with the Washington Archibald High School, with the exception of the fifth form classes. Because those classes are preparing to take exams, we could not run the risk of having them being disrupted in terms of classroom sharing. So a private commercial building, single floor, has been commissioned so that those classes can be held adjacent to the premises of the Washington Archibald High School complex. As it relates to the matter of investigating or getting to the bottom, or attempting what would be the final result in terms of the issues at Bastia High School, it may have been intimated to you earlier that we did have a team of experts from the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, funded by PAHO, who were here several weeks ago trying to do some investigative work in terms of sources of contamination. Contrary to what may have been uttered in the press over the last 5 or 6 days, neither Minister Richards nor I are in receipt of the NIOSH report. When that is made available, we will have no problems divulging it to the public, because what is going on at Bastia High School is very much a public health issue, as it is an educational issue. And once it affects persons, it affects us, and it affects the whole community. In the interim, I happen to know, based on the reports from the multi-stakeholder group that is looking at options for Bastia High School and the temporary placement in the short and medium term, that what is being entertained at the moment is the possible location temporarily of the entire school complex. We have received an estimate from one source attached to the Public Works Department in terms of what it may cost in terms of putting down temporary buildings of a wooden construction. So that is being looked at. There are also several other options that are in front of us. We are trying to determine which are the best options in terms of cost, in terms of convenience, and so forth for the students, recognizing that in spite of the difficulties, we do not want them to be operating in a learning environment that has less amenities than any other high school situation in St. Kitts and Nevis, because that would not be fair to them. The issue of looking at the longer-term solutions, of course, a lot of that is going to be dependent on the outcome of this upcoming report and final decisions that would be made by the Ministry of Education in consultation with Cabinet. So as we get those updates, we will be forthcoming with that information. I happen to know that the Deputy Prime Minister, who is also Minister of Education, would have been sitting in on the most recent meetings of that multi-stakeholder group. So I invite Deputy PM Richards to come forward to add that piece.
Thank you, Minister Phipps, and I think that she has given a very detailed background with regards to what would have transpired thus far. As she indicated to you, we had a company by the name of NIOSH, which would have done some further testing at Bastille High School. They provided us with a debriefing which was shared between myself, the Honorable Attorney General, and also the substantive Minister of Health, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton. They have, however, promised us to provide us with a formal report. When we do receive that report, after discussing it with Cabinet, we expect to make that report available to the public. She was also very correct in indicating to you that alternatives are being considered. I spoke with the Director of Public Works, Mr. Cromwell Williams. I asked him to take a look at the Fort Thomas Hotel and to give an indication as to the possibility of doing some refurbishment there so that it can be used in the interim to house the students of Bastille High School. He has since provided me with a report. That report indicates that at a minimum, we would have to spend $2.1 million to make it usable for the students. That is if we are using the facilities which are currently there and doing some additional work on it. A second option would be to erect some wooden structures on the compound. That is costed at $3.8 million. But the Prime Minister in his opening remarks also indicated that we are approaching the hurricane season. And so that also must be taken into consideration if a decision is made to erect temporary structures, whether at Fort Thomas or elsewhere. So there are options before us. We have also looked at procuring modular buildings to be used as classrooms. We have been discussing this with the stakeholders so that persons are fully aware as to the options that we are currently pursuing. It is expected that during the course of July and August in particular, whatever option as a cabinet, as a government we decide to pursue, then the work would have to begin so that come September there is actually something in place. The shift system is there, and for the most part it is filling the gap. But if you speak to the students, the parents and the teachers, it's not the most practical situation at this particular stage. And so in the interim, we would want to ensure that the students and the teachers in particular, they are as comfortable as possible. The question which was raised about CPL, we are going to host CPL as would have been indicated in a previous press conference involving myself, the organizers for CPL, and the owners for the St. Kitts franchise, the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots. There is a local organizing committee which is working to ensure that everything is in place for CPL. The persons on that committee are Val Henry, Lester Hanley, Shirley Julius, Marvin Hanley, Kevin Morris, and I think Noah Mills. Those are the persons on the local organizing committee. The local cricket association has also been given responsibility for the local operations. The association is headed by Dennis Phillip. I've been speaking with those individuals on a daily basis. As recently as yesterday, I would have spoken with Mr. Phillip. I spoke with Noah Mills, for example, this morning. I spoke with Val Henry yesterday. I've been in constant contact with Richard Berridge, who is working with CPL and also with the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots to ensure that indeed the venue is ready by the 30th of June for us to successfully host the CPL games. I can add here that When we came to you previously on the matter of CPL, of course, the biggest concern then was the fact that the previous administration did not budget any monies in respect of CPL. Cabinet took a decision to go forward with CPL. We were able to speak with the executive members of CPL. We came up with a revised payment schedule. The first payment of $1 million became due and payable on the 22nd of May, and this was in collaboration with Cabinet and also with persons from the Ministry of Finance. So we came up with a revised payment schedule. The first payment last week, Friday, the 22nd of May, and I can say to you that we are on schedule with regards to that particular payment, and there are 2 more payments equaling $750,000 each to give the total of $2.5 million, which will be paid before the CPL games are hosted on the 30th of June.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister. I want to thank all for coming out to be part of this press conference. Certainly, as space would allow, we do encourage persons to come and be part of it, although the preference is given to the media and to photographers like Willett. We certainly welcome people as part of the new openness which we want to bring to the country. And certainly we would want to encourage students to come and be part. It is important that people have as rich as possible an understanding of what actually takes place in settings like this. So to one and all, and especially to the media, thank you very, very much. The press secretary would want to add. No.
Sorry to take up your time, PM, but as the PR chairman of the Public Relations Committee of the Sugar Workers Restoration Fund, I was given a special job to do by my chairman to make an announcement with regards to the activities of the Sugar Workers Restoration Fund. Now, that, as most of you would know, that the office was open last week, I think it was, and they have been doing a lot of work over there. They've had over 1,000 applications so far, and there have been some outreach to some communities to go to those persons who cannot come to the office. One of the outreach is going to be done on Friday in Nevis, and I was asked to specifically make this announcement that the officers from the Sugar Workers Restoration Fund Secretariat will be going to Nevis on Friday from 9 to 1, and they will be at the federal office on Government Road in Charlestown, Nevis. I also understand they're going to be going to Cayon on Friday as well. And so the committee continues to do the work, and there are persons who have taken application forms and have not brought them back to the office. And we are also asking those persons to, as soon as possible, to assist with the whole process and getting the payments made as soon as possible. We're going to be announcing a date for the applications to be in by, but in the meantime, it would help the process if those persons who have taken application forms to please sign them, fill them out, sign them, and bring them back to the office on South Independence Square Street. Thank you very much, PM.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all.